Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all having a good week and you haven't got caught up in any of the things that have been happening lately that you've seen in the news. So firstly, some news. Your results day for GCSEs will be the 20th of August. Seems that isn't going to change. We still don't know how that's going to work yet and what it means for when you come in. Or how you collect your results, but it seems the government fixed on it being the 20th. In other news, so obviously we're past the peak, so to speak, for COVID-19. There's a chance that it will happen again or it'll start to come back, but at the moment it seems to be decreasing quite a bit because we've all been keeping to the lockdown and everyone's being treated, which is a good thing. Schools are starting to reopen now. Our school will reopen for year 10 in, I think, a week's time. We'll start letting them in, but it won't be like it was before. There's only going to be a few pupils in at a time and only for a few subjects. I'm not going in. So they won't be doing science, but they'll be doing some subjects. Prom and NRA, yeah, still going ahead. Still don't have any dates for it though. And I think that's about it for school news. I'm hoping now that most of you that are going off to college and you've decided where you're going to go, you've done any work that needed to be done for them, and you're just relaxing now. That's the point in it, really. You're in your summer holiday, so I hope you're enjoying that. It's nice, I've heard from a few of you over the past couple of weeks. I got to make some final phone calls as well, which was really good. It's nice to hear that most of you are doing well. I know that some of you are struggling with things at the moment. If you want to get in touch and talk to someone, talk to me, then please do. You don't have to sit and worry and whatever on your own. Just drop me an email and we can have a chat. I think I can email you anytime, more or less. But if you need a phone call about something, then I'm here for you, okay? So I suppose we should probably mention like the big thing that's going on, all the protests and riots. There's a lot of information out there about it. It's what is troubling. This is worrying to hear what happened in the United States. It's more frightening to me to think that so many people in the UK seem to think that we've got the same issues here. We don't. You can look up numbers on the Office of National Statistics website, and you can find out about police brutality, let's say, or racism in the UK. It's not the same as it is in the States. It's troubling to see so many people going out and protesting, and I use the term protesting loosely because from what I've seen reported, it looks like it's rioting to me, defacing Churchill monuments in London. Probably not a good thing given it was D-Day, the anniversary of D-Day on Saturday. People being attacked, police being attacked, the police whose job it is to keep everyone safe. And I know there's an element of people are worried about police brutality in the States. So attacking the police in the UK doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I know it might not be the majority of people, I don't know, it might not be the majority of people that are doing that, but those are the people who are trying to keep us safe, and now they're being attacked. But even if we put all of that aside, I think the troubling thing is the consequences that this is going to have on the lockdown. Now, I'm not saying that the government are going to lock us down as a retaliation for people protesting. People are free to protest normally, but we were all told that we shouldn't be going out and congregating. And I saw Guildford, there were gatherings. I heard there were ones in Woking as well. I know there were definitely, obviously the ones in London, you see it in Bristol and everywhere. Seems like all the major cities are having something, but no one's social distancing. And I've heard lots of people saying, you know, it's more important that we combat racism than COVID-19. Yeah, racism is bad. And if you have experienced it or are experiencing it, then protesting that and alerting the authorities. It's what we do here in the UK. We tell someone about it, you report it, and then it gets dealt with. Again, the UK and the USA are not the same place. But all of that aside, I wouldn't be surprised now if we find that the R value, that is the rate of transfer from person to person for the virus, increases. Because when you look at those riots that are going on, the reports of thousands of people gathering together in all the major cities, some are wearing masks, some aren't. It doesn't really matter if you're that close to each other. It's terrifying to think that, and I know some students from the school have gone out, and to think that people have gone out under the guise of thinking, oh, this is a really good thing, but I do wonder how much of it is, we've been locked down for so long, let us out, I'll take any excuse. But so many people going out and doing that, and then being exposed to so many other people, only takes one of them to have coronavirus, and then it very easily is going to get transferred through others if you are that close together, and then you're going to take it home to families. And then that's something you're going to have on your conscience. It's horrible. I don't know what's going to happen. I suspect that the R value will increase, and then if the government follows through with what they've been saying, then it means that we could go into a stricter lockdown, although maybe only in certain places, maybe only where there's been all these massive gatherings. We'll find out, I suppose, in a few days, maybe a week. It takes that long for the virus to propagate through people. Hopefully there's been no change. I think that would be unlikely given the amount of people gathered together, but fingers crossed there are no further deaths caused by these gatherings and riots. We won't know unless we see distinct peaks, but please stay at home. Please don't go out and join riots. Protest in your own way if you feel there is something that you need to protest, but don't always assume that everything that you hear that's happening in the United States is the same as it is here. All right. Other than that, hopefully no more lockdown and things continue to ease. I read earlier that there's a consideration of opening more shops and some social gathering places like restaurants and whatnot, cafes maybe, in the coming week or two. We'll find out more this week. I imagine Thursday we'd hear more. I know every 3 weeks on a Thursday they do a bigger bulletin to announce significant changes, but I think we might hear more this week about what's going on, and hopefully we'll all get to go out a little bit more. So in terms of questions, so I've been asked for just some help with coping strategies. A lot of people are just feeling a bit like they're fed up and they've got nothing to do, no motivation to do anything. And I'm not talking about work necessarily. Your work is pretty much, it's done now, unless you've been saving up extra work to do. There's a few reasons why people feel like this, why they feel so despondent and run down. I'm not saying it's going to fit everyone, but I've said before about the effect of social media on people, and how you're constantly being attacked by information everywhere. But that's not really it, because you've still got that when you're at home. I think part of the problem is that all of us, we're so used to getting lots of information and messages and whatnot sent to us through our phones and computers and whatnot, and also going out and seeing people and being social, that at times like this, when we're locked in and we're not being social anymore, we start to perhaps realise how empty all those Snapchat messages or TikToks or however else we're communicating are. Like when you're at school or when you're out and about and we're not locked down and you're sending messages to people and you're hanging out with people, it's fine. You might not really notice, but now you've had the human connection taken away and you're left with just what's on your phone. Perhaps you've started to realise that it doesn't really suffice, it doesn't count as social interaction, and you start feeling a little bit hollow, maybe a little bit depressed, maybe a little bit anxious. Splits between boys and girls. Boys and girls, men and women cope a little bit differently. Statistically, young men, boys, don't necessarily recognise that there's something wrong because they would fill their time with games and internet, whatnot, and generally not fine. They're still feeling not great, but find ways to distract themselves pretty quickly. Girls, on the other hand, typically would recognise that there is something wrong, but not necessarily know what to do about it. Now, I'm not making this up. I did a little bit of reading over the past week about how people deal with social anxiety and how people deal with lockdown. And so it's based on statistics. It's not just me pulling things out of my backside. So guys, yeah, video games and pornography seems to keep them by and safe in the knowledge that that's probably what other guys are doing as well to cope. So fine, no change there. And when lockdown ends, it might be a bit weird for a while, but then back to it. For girls as well, when lockdown ends and we're all back being social again, yeah, there will be some time where we're going to have to adapt. It might take a couple of weeks before you feel normal again, but for some of you, it might not even take that long. A couple of days in a college, surrounded by other people or sociable, you get that instant interaction where suddenly it'll be a shock to the system because it's been so long, but then it'll be all right again. It won't take long. But it's how you deal with it now, I suppose. It's what we think is that as your social bonds start to decrease, your level of anxiety increases because we're not left on our own ever. It used to be a case. The reason you don't see this historically is because a few decades ago, people were on their own a lot of the time. So, for instance, when I was at school, you'd go and see your friends when you were at school, and then you'd go home, and there might not be a computer. Certainly, like you had a mobile phone, but it would take you half an hour to write a message out. So, texting each other and messaging just wouldn't happen. And so you had to spend a fair bit of time just on your own, with your own thoughts, or entertaining yourself that didn't involve a computer. Now, I'm not saying, we should crave the ye old times when things were better, like wheel out the horse and cart. I'm not saying that at all. But part of that meant that people were very used to being on their own and coping with thinking through their day, analysing themselves, if you like. I don't mean you sit there and review everything that you did, but you'd have time where it was just you. Whereas today, I think you're robbed of that time because you're always getting messages. Some of you know what it's like sometimes. If you turn your phone off or you forget it or you leave it, you've got that moment of anxiety when you're like, I haven't got it, what's going on? And then perhaps you then enter that time of peace where you think, do you know what? It's actually quite relaxing. I don't feel like I'm being hassled every 30 seconds by a ding or a message or a vibrate or whatever. And you get a little bit of peace. And I think that's what many of you have lacked so much of. And this is now causing you to be a bit anxious when you're left on your own. And everyone's feeling the same because no one's doing anything. There's nothing really to talk about other than, hi, how are you? What are you doing? I'm sat inside. What are you doing? I'm also sat inside. Okay, should we watch each other sitting inside? Yeah, sure. Okay. Nice top. Like there's nothing, you're not doing anything to talk about, which is robbing you, and you're left struggling. It's tricky. So I think one of the skills is that we don't really know how to talk to people. We're very good at messaging people. You can email people, you can text people, you can Snapchat and whatever else. But actually having a lengthy conversation with someone is quite tricky. You see the same thing at school. People struggle to talk with each other for a long time. Not everyone does. Some people handle it really well. But you need to do that also when you're not physically together. So right now, having the ability to phone someone up and have a conversation with them to actually connect with another human being, not physically, but just mentally by talking with them, can do wonders for you. If you're missing all that social interaction and you feel, actually, if I phone someone, I just wouldn't know what to say, or it's weird talking on the phone. It is weird talking on the phone because you probably never do it. You talk in person instead, and you probably talk about the things that you're doing. What you need to do is find something else to talk about. I know it sounds stupid, I realise that, but it's not. You need to have some kind of stimulation from other people, some kind of human connection, if you like. If you can't cope with being on your own, and you would eventually adapt to just being you and no one else there. But I think to get out of this stage of anxiety and numbness, you need to talk with people. Now, you might find it weird to talk to your friends. You're probably going to find the next thing weird as well. Maybe it's time to broaden your social horizons. You might find that you're limited when you're talking to friends, depending on who you're talking to, because you might have a particular image that you need to convey. You don't want to say anything that's uncool or whatever. You want to portray yourself in the best light, which is what social media has taught us. You only put the best things up. So perhaps try talking with other people. Talk with your family. That means perhaps phoning people you don't live with and speaking with them, because they're not going to judge you in the same way. They probably even don't know what's the cool at the moment or anything, so you're not going to have that same kind of interaction with them. Likewise, your family, the people that you're living with, younger siblings, older parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, the lot, different life experiences, different opinions on things. And I realise it's awkward. I understand that completely. But talking with them and engaging with people at a human level will help your anxiety. I know it's difficult, but it's just what will help you is having a connection with people and being able to converse and get your thoughts out and get a stimulus in from someone else that's meaningful, more meaningful than a few words saying, what are you up to, as a message. Instead, you can sit down and have a conversation with people. Just talk about anything. Could even be the weather. Write down some interesting things. Ask people to, I don't know, play a game together. Anything that gets you interacting with other people will help you. It's funny, so some studies were done that shows that the younger people these days, so teenagers and below, struggle making eye contact because you're not used to it necessarily. In conversation with people, it's really difficult for you to make eye contact because you're not used to it. You feel like someone is staring right through you. And it's really peculiar because you don't get that when you're looking at a phone and you're talking that way instead. But this is something that you can develop, and it will help you to feel more comfortable talking with people and more sociable when you go back to college, if you can develop that skill of conversation now, which means listening to people for an extended period of time, looking at them while they're talking to you, and then talking back to them. I don't say this to sound patronising. I say it because having a conversation can be quite tricky to do. It's not the same when you're talking via your phone as it is talking in person. You get a lot more about talking in person. So broaden your social horizons would be my advice. Don't limit yourself to talking to people your age. No, I'm not saying go and find some predators on the internet and talk with them. Not saying that. I'm saying talk with real people that you know. Older people, younger people, people in your family. Do that, and it will help you deal with this. Many people have different ways of dealing with anxiety. I know some people can resort to hurting themselves or doing risky activities because you feel like you just want to feel something. Because when you're not surrounded by other people distracting you all the time and you realise how empty phone communication is, that you just feel numb. But although, yes, hurting yourself, it does make you feel something. It's not good though. It's not something to be proud of and show off and say, look at me and my #brave battle scars. No, it means that there's a problem. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you and that you are mentally damaged in some way. It doesn't mean that you are suddenly going to turn into some attention-seeking person. It just means that perhaps you need a little bit of TLC. You need to talk to people and to regain that human interaction. My advice for any of you, if you're feeling anxious, you're feeling numb, alone, and like things just don't matter anymore, and you've got no motivation for anything, get on the phone and talk to people or talk to your family. I'm not saying talk to them about this and bring up and say, I'm feeling depressed. Just have a conversation with people. Spend half an hour on the phone talking to a member of your family or someone that you know and trust, that not necessarily part of your own age group. Call someone in your family, a relative. Just ask them to talk. Ask them about their day, ask them about their year, ask them about their hopes and fears, anything. Write down some questions. If you need help with this, by all means, email me. Again, I don't say this to sound patronising, I say this to try and help you. It seems that this is one of the big causes of anxiety and numbness, is that you are missing interaction. And we need to regain that in a full and wholesome way, which means lengthy conversations. That's my advice, that's my tip for this week. Get in touch with people, have some lengthy conversations. If you are suffering, if you are feeling really anxious and you're not sure what to do, if you're feeling numb, email me, get in touch with me and I can help. We can talk it through and we can sort you out. And, well, we can try and get you feeling a bit better, all right? Don't think that you have to sit and suffer in silence. A lot of people are feeling this way at the moment, adults as well. A lot of people are finding it really difficult to be locked up for this amount of time and not know what's going to happen in the future with any amount of certainty. Things will get back to some normality again in the future. When? Don't know. Hopefully by the end of the summer, but we don't know. But don't wait till then. If you're struggling now, reach out to someone and ask for some help, or just say you want to talk. That's all. It doesn't make you any weaker. It makes you stronger if you develop the skill now to talk to people and to ask for help, or just to talk. I think it will do you no end of good. So that's it. All right. Other than that, I hope you have a lovely week. Do get in touch if you've got any questions, or if you want to talk about anything that I've said today. Take care. If you're looking for some advice, then what helped me get through school was watching Buffy, which I believe is now on Channel 4 doing reruns. So you can bet your life, me and my 6-month-old son will be getting up every morning watching a little bit of that. All right. Take care, everyone, and I'll speak to you next week. Bye-bye.